in order to prepare for this particular webinar, I looked up, I did a lot of Google searches. And what I realized is these days there's a lot of talk about women being unreasonably favored under law. We have a lot of stringent law favoring women. And I've always felt that we have these laws favoring women because women need that type of protection. The way the society has evolved for various reasons. And these are some statistics from UN's report on drug and crime. Every 11 minutes, somewhere in the world, a woman is killed. And this murder is not an ordinary murder. This murder is invariably a killing either by the spouse or somebody in the family. Every 11 minutes. That, to put things in a context, that means by the time we are done with this session, some 10 women would have died. Then another interesting statistic that I came across is even as of today, the total number, if you take a stock of total number of killings, 80% of the homicides, men are the victim. But remember, we are talking about killings not by third parties. We are talking about killings by family members. It just goes to show the environment that women live in. And it's not specific to India. As I said, world over, things are, the scales are tipped against us. So I decided to first discuss the economic laws as far as women are concerned, mainly because the core audience of PLEA is that of lawyers, young freshers, students who would really want to know what the landscape out there, the economic landscape is like. So just to let you know, even in the, we are in 2025, until date, hardly 10% of the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are women. So there is an asymmetry, although the women workforce is far greater than 10%. So look at how lopsided the pyramid is. So in that context, I wanted to ask Poonam, and I wanted about any laws. We know that they are constitutional guarantees, but I just wanted to ask Poonam to talk about the Equal Remuneration Act, which was enacted way back in 1971. And just first give us an overview. What is it all about? And then maybe we can go on to the next question. How effective it has been, whether what has her experience has been as a labor law practitioner. Yes, Poonam. So will you please share a couple of points about the Equal Remuneration Act?
So, with regard to the statute, Equal Remuneration Act, it is an act which gives an employer, or which puts an obligation on an employer to provide same salary to both men and women in the same post. So, when I say post, it has to be, if a clerk is appointed as either as a male or either as a female, they are to be given the same salary. There should not be any discrimination in the payment of salary. So the Equal Remuneration Act bans the discrimination of payment of wages to both men and women on this, if they are working for the same kind of work, similar nature of work on the same post. Further, not only the remuneration has been protected under the Equal Remuneration Act, what has also been protected that you cannot make gender basis advertisement. Like, you just cannot say that I am trying to hire assistant manager for an HR role or for a sales role, but I don't want any female candidate for that. There would be definitely questions right now within the audience who would say that no, we have come across advertisement where they say that it is only male candidates. Those may be specific role altogether, like security guards. If I'm trying to hire security guards, it is a very specific role for which I can justify my putting my gender into it. But when it comes to a generic role or generic specific role, then the Equal Remuneration Act prohibits discrimination on the gender basis. So promotion, your payment of salary, your increments, everything has to be there cannot be a discrimination on the basis of the gender.
Poonam, does that mean that there are certain sectors that are preferred? In certain sectors, women are preferred and instead of men. Similarly, there must be certain sectors when men are preferred over women.
See, sectors wise, as I said, as I give you an example of security guard, yes, that this is not a sector, but this is a specific post or specific job, or a job which where you have to specify a physical quality or a physical parameter. Then there, men are preferred. But sales job, medical MRs are more. It's more of kind of a running job, more kind of a going hospitals to hospitals. There the preference would be definitely male, and if that could be justified, then yes. But it also doesn't say that it also doesn't prove that as females we apply for that. We have less number of applications on the for a medical representative job also. But if a female applies for that medical representative job, then if she is chosen for that job, then her remuneration should not be lesser than what is given to a male
But
counterpart.
you can have a criteria which says that, supposing I put up an advertisement that I'm looking for a, say, security guard, and I want a male security guard. Is that legal under law? Will that
Yes,
say
it
so?
could be. As a lawyer, I can defend that, saying that it is my specific criteria. For example, I'll give you. Under the Factories Act, now there is an amendment and there is a Kerala High Court judgment which says that you have to have a night shift. You can employ women in night shift. Earlier, employment of women in night shift was prohibited by
Not
the
permissible.
law itself. So if now employment of women in the night shift is allowed. So Madras High Court says laid down few guidelines which says that if you are having 10 number of women workers in the night shift, then you have to have two female night security guard also. So when the factories or the employers are now started hiring more and more women, then they will definitely need to hire a night shift women guard. So their advertisement will be a specific advertisement that we want women in the security guard role. So there I can justify. See, it was a requirement. It was a per se requirement, but I am not discriminating. I'm not hiring any men altogether or women altogether.
Dr. Jagota, here I would like to ask you a couple of questions, and more generic questions, in the sense that it is okay to have an Equal Remuneration Act, but we
Right.
don't have an equal platform to begin with.
True.
What percentage of workforce is
Mm.
in India consists of women? How many women are firstly encouraged to work? And I'm not talking about the upwardly mobile urban women in urban areas. I'm talking about women in rural and semi-rural areas, where I think it is more important to empower those women. And the best way to empower any woman is to make her economically independent. So long as these women depend on their spouses, husbands, fathers, on any male counterpart.
True. I agree with you. See, today I think there has been a major transformation. There are more women who are coming out of their homes and who are willing to work. We are in number of women in the unorganized sector is also increasing day by day. See, you will see more of women, particularly domestic servants. We already have more women who are. You will see at the construction sites they are entertaining and they are not only now working only as a labor force, they are joined in as masons. In Punjab we have number of women who have learned the skill and they are now doing the construction work, and there are the men who are working under them as laborers. So the transformation is coming forward and they demand wages as per the demanded by the male. They said we can do everything, so why should we pay less wages? And the best part is that we trust a female more than we trust a male. And we are more happy that if we are having a female and who is taking up the responsibility that she will ensure this work will be done in this much work, then I have more trust that if she is saying it, she'll get the work done, in contrast to the male contractors who are usually exploiting the lot. So there has been a major transformation which is now emerging over the last 2 to 3 years in each and every sector. If I talk about education also, more women are now entering the field. We have more women working not only as lecturers, but even if you look at the profession, which was earlier considered to be a taboo for a woman to go and practice in the court. Today, the district courts are also loaded with women and they're doing a commendable job. It is not only that they are running after the senior bosses, but young girls, they have taken set up their own seats and they're doing the work independently.
Then
So I believe that it is the inbuilt strategy that now women are also enlightened. They are getting that support from the family also. But if the son is doing it, the daughter is equally capacitated and she can also do it. So that transformation has been brought about. And I think it is a globally affecting, but in our country, people have started looking differently at women in contrast to what was going on traditionally. Even though we see the crime chart going, we see exploitation, we see harassment at the workplace, but still it is improving on the aspect that more women are willing to put their foot down and they're coming forward that will take up the charge.
I'm so glad to hear that because I was just discussing, talking with Poonam some time back, and it is okay to certain positions are invariably held by women, that of a receptionist or that of sales team, sales manager. But when it comes down to something like the late operator, the bar vendor, and I'm so glad you gave the example of a mason
Yeah,
where um, vocational skills. Electricians, you don't see women electricians.
right.
Everybody would not have the.
So, Divya, here the mindset is now changing. We do see some few females as bartenders also. They are doing extremely well. The people, the women are also going out and becoming DJs. They are also doing well. The acceptance level of our society is now increasing. On the Women's Day, I came across an ad by Cars 24 Wala, which said that we had two valet parking people attending standing there. One was a female driver and one was a male driver. Everybody gave maximum of the drivers, the car owners gave their keys to the male driver. So it is the mindset which affects. So when you are driving in a road, I don't know about Bombay, but in Delhi, I hear lot of people saying that the lady driver, oh, the car is being driven by a woman, they don't know how to drive. Whereas Mercedes, the first car was invented and driven by a lady all over the world. So Mercedes, although Bertha's husband invented it, but it was because of Bertha that Mercedes came onto the road. Had it not been the woman, Mercedes would never existed.
Yes,
So
and
it
I
is
think
mindset which is going to change. Laws are being governed, laws are being also complied with. But our mindset is more important to change right now.
so. That is where I think the challenge is to
Yeah,
can
to
have n
educate.
number of laws, and in fact, we must be having one of the best laws in the world. But how do you change the society, the societal makeup? The other, I often hear people say, HR heads say that, oh, we don't want women workforce because invariably they'd have issues regarding, while traveling to other places. They go on maternity leave, which it disrupts work. Posh has come into being. They come up with false cases. And every time I hear something like that, I feel there is a certain if I am enlightened and if I run a well organized company, then I would not be fearful of any woman worker getting up and saying that she has been treated badly, she has been discriminated against. It is only a pervert mind would think that these laws are twisted, these that we should do away with these laws. So that is where my second second leg of question is, as far as maternity benefit act is concerned, we have to create an infrastructure too for women. It's one thing to invite women into the workforce, but where is the infrastructure? Many women complain that I was watching Sudha Murthy's interview once, and she said that when she as an engineer joined I think TCS, joined her first company, there were not even washrooms for women. So
Yes.
how do we create a convenient infrastructure? And in that respect, take for example, okay, washroom is you can have a washroom. There's that I don't see as great challenge. But what about other roles that women are going to be mothers? how much as employers we feel that we need to support them in something which is a natural progression in life, and how effective has maternity benefit act been? Can you, I personally know of a case where a lady advocate, see, unfortunately, law firms are not covered by any of these acts. The,
They
once you
can
start,
be. They can
they
be
can
covered.
be, they
Yes,
can,
they can be covered.
ideally, we as law firms should come forward and lead the way and be the torch bearers and say that, the most of the labor legislation when we in 1950s, when we had to formulate our labor laws, they were picked up from Jamshedpur and implemented at a national level, because Jamshedpur, Tata's had a vision that workforce should be empowered, they should be happy.
That was the Tata's, that Jamshedpur was the first place where they had a creche, which now, after so many years in 2017, has come into existence into the Maternity Benefit Act. So the
So
vision was there, but never implemented. As I said, it is our mindset. It is more of our mindset. The patriarchal society has to actually leave that mindset to come to this level.
sometimes I feel because the law firms know the law, they don't care.
No, no, it is not about that. It is about the applicability. When you decide the applicability of an act, you have to see the threshold. So, Maternity Benefit Act says 10 or more employees. Okay, so in law firms, we are generally, or the maximum number of people working there are advocates who are not employees but on retainer basis. So that is why the applicability, that the laws are not applicable. But for law firms where there are more 10 or more employees or 20 or more employees, which will consist of their IT staff, which will consist of their PNs, the help desk, the sweepers, if these kind of staff makes 10 or more than 10 or more employees, then definitely all the act will become applicable irrespective of gratuity, irrespective of maternity. But the whole criteria is that there are not more than 10 or more employees. So for my knowledge, when I started out with my first firm, they used to pay maternity benefit to the staff. Like if there is a stenographer who is a lady, then if they, since we had more than 10 employees, so they used to extend that maternity benefit to the staff. They used to extend
How
that.
many
They do not extend that same benefit to the lawyer because they do not fall within the definition of employees. Right.
now, how many women know that it is not correct to terminate their employment during their pregnancy? How many women do you think know that? Have you done any such matter?
Yeah, yeah, I have done. I have done a matter for one of an individual client who happened to be referred by one of my friend. She knew her. So she was working from home and her office was in Hyderabad. So it was during that COVID period when everybody was working from home. So when she went ahead and told the HR that she will be taking a maternity or availing a maternity leave from the month of April, they started creating problem from the month of December, saying that your work is not up to mark, the client has complained this or something like that, either you put down your paper, we terminate. So she said, I am not going to put down my paper. If you want to terminate, you terminate. The moment they terminated her, she went and called me up, and we filed a complaint before the appropriate authority under the Maternity Act, which happens to be Labour Commissioner's office, and they had to pay her the entire 26 weeks benefit. They had to give the entire 26 weeks benefit. So yes, people are, I'll tell you, recently we had a case where a female employee, after the maternity, after availing the Maternity Benefit Act, she made an application to the employer saying that provide me a creche, because under the law you are obligated to provide a creche within the vicinity, or yes, within the vicinity or around the within few kilometers
Nearest.
of the office, that you have to provide a creche because you have more than 50 or more employees. So our client reached out to us for an advice, and we said, yes, you are obligated, that's a statutory obligation, so you have to provide a creche. They said, we don't have that much of space within our office. You have to pair it up with your crash which is nearby. Like she can go and feed her baby and come back. Four intervals have to be given to her to feed her baby also. That conveyance allowance also you have to bear the cost because you are not providing the crash within the facility. So
Now, yeah, I would like to,
yeah.
sorry, I would like to ask Dr. Jagota that the couple of takeaways that, that I've got from Poonam's experience is that there's a concept of paid leave under Maternity Benefit Act. Not only that, there's also a concept of creche.
Yeah.
But how many careers have been lost because of maternity? How many women had to actually give up their career? Talking about the social landscape as different from the legislative landscape.
I would agree with you because the point is how many women actually want to come and approach the labor commissioner putting forward a representation. We have a very laid back attitude. We believe, okay, fine, I leave the job for 6 months or 1 year. When my child is a bit better, then I'll come back and join again. So this is the concept which is there in the families also. The support is not there that let's put forward, we'll make a request, we can make a plea, we can look for alternative, we can work from home options. But usual practice which I see in the society, women themselves are willing to give up their job for the child and they'll come back after the child has attained a certain age. The child will be going to the pre-nursery or play-in and they will be joining back their jobs. This is the reality of the society every day.
But the other aspect that I would like to highlight, if a woman goes to the labor commissioner, for example, to avail of any of these benefits, be it Equal Remuneration Act, be it under the Maternity Benefit Act, wouldn't there be a certain stigma attached to her? The new employee, in case she decides to move on, join another firm or entity or company for better prospects, wouldn't the and it would be naturally in the same area, we are not talking about, say, law firms over here. We are not talking about IT companies over here. So wouldn't there be a certain stigma attached? Wouldn't the new employer say, all right, this girl, we know this employee from her previous employment, she has approached the labor commissioner. So wouldn't that, again, in spite of having laws in her favor, impede her success?
That is definitely there. I would not say that it is a myth, it is a reality because every time you are moving from one place to another, the employer does take it as a mission or as a responsibility to first know the credential as to why you left that place, why you have moved on, what actually happened. And when you are in a small city, it becomes very easy and convenient to find out what is the actual reason why the person has left. But that again, it varies from individual to individual, employer to employer. Some will understand the situation, they would appreciate it, but there are others who will take it as an excuse for not giving you the employment. Reason being that they perceive that no, that would be something creating a trouble for us also, so they try to shy away from the situation and they will not give you the employment. You may be fully capacitated, or you may be giving a reasonable assurance that I will inform you prior hand if anything is, or if I intend to take a leave next time. But still, usually the employer prefers a male over there rather than a female employee.
No, I mean, as I said, you can have all the laws in the world. Approaching
Yes,
the labor commissioner itself is, is a stigma.
it
So
is a stigma. I agree with you.
you would be better off
But
leaving.
in my experience, sorry to interrupt there, but in my experience, generally, when people call for background checks to the previous employer, they ask whether this person has worked with you and was his behavior good. They don't have that much of bandwidth to give you that explanation that yes, she was terminated and she filed a case, because that also hampers the company's reputation also. So these things are they're not disclosed as freely as possible. Yes, but they can get to know from somewhere else. That is a different part. But companies generally don't disclose in such a great detail why whether there was a case or not.
That I agree. In fact, these days you'll find a lot of people, especially women professionals, make a lot of soft inquiries about the work culture of a company before joining the company, which is
True.
work culture is something which is very important for all of us. We wouldn't
Yeah.
want to join a company with a very toxic environment. So in that context, Poonam, I just wanted to discuss the POSH Act, Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace. It was enacted in 2013. How effective has been in the last 10 years? And I know for a fact that there's a lot of, and media should take a fair share of the blame. There's a lot of talk in the media or that this act has been more abused than used. We can talk about the abuse pluses and minuses of the act later on. But yes, firstly, how effective has this act been and what kind of cases have you handled? I'm sure the cases, which come from, say, a factory premises would be a lot different, which we come from, say, a corporate setup. The kind of cases that we usually hear about are WhatsApp messages, which have been WhatsApp messages which have misfired, bonding trips, misdemeanors on a bonding trip, very common. But there are instances where in the factory premises, women have complained that they are on the shop floor and the male, say the male factory worker continuously stares at them, uh, making things difficult. You wouldn't like to be stared at. You wouldn't like to be stared at voyeuristically for sure while you are earning a living. So yes, just if you can share some of your insights on the POSH Act with us.
So POSH Act, yes, it was enacted in 2013, but prior to POSH Act, there were Visakha guidelines given by Supreme Court, which a company had to adhere to while taking up any complaints which were related to POSH. But because since it was not statutized or it had no legal authority to it, so it was not followed that strictly. But yes, POSH Act has come into place and it is being complied. It is being complied at least at the private sector, because when you Google, then Supreme Court is taking up on its own. So moto is taking up cognizance, is taking so moto cognizance of the newspaper articles which says that PSUs like sports authorities, other PSUs, other government departments are not having POSH Act or not giving training. When it comes to corporate sector, the private sector, it is being adhered to maximum. At the maximum level, it is being adhered to. How? By constituting an internal committee which will only look after the POSH case and nothing else. Any complaint, any slightest nature of complaint is being taken very seriously by the employers. Everybody is required to have a policy, and all the policies which I have reviewed or I have made it a zero tolerance policy. Especially corporates which are whose parent company are outside India, they are being, the non-implementation level is more at the rural area where the women are still have to encourage or gather that courage to complain, to go ahead and complain. Your employability, the capacity of earning, is also a major role which plays a deterrent in the POSH complaints. But yes, the complaints are being happening. I do a lot of training for internal committee members and for the employees. I have seen where employees are already educated or where people are not at all educated. So yes, trainings remain a challenge for me. But in my experience, trainings remain a challenge. Employers are going ahead and putting up a module and running a video that is not helping. Only a physical training can help or educate more and more people. People don't know how to write a complaint, whom to write a complaint. Generally, all the complaints are going to HR, whereas because of the confidentiality, it should only go to the IC members. So the confidentiality part comes into play there. So it is being employed. When we see the newspaper article, it says that the POSH or the sexual harassment cases is arisen. It's not that after POSH Act has come to play, people are doing more sexual harassment. No, no. The complaining or the making a complaint has arisen because now there is a specific statute to deal with, which is there to back up. So, yes, implementation is there, but lacunas are still there for which it is being acted upon by the government.
Here, I would like to ask Dr. Rupam, and one question that keeps on coming back is that how well off are women in rural areas, in tier two cities? According to me, women in tier two and rural areas need greater protection, because those of us who are in Mumbai, Bangalore, we have the wherewithal to fend for ourselves. But what about the women? What about the woman working at a construction site? So, how many cases of construction workers have has Posh seen? And it's very disheartening to learn from Poonam that the implementation of the act has been excellent in the private sector, but almost in the government sector. Yes, doctor.
I agree with her, definitely. See, the problem here is to first to make the people understand the fact that what kind of a sign, what kind of a gesture, what kind of a remark is amounting to sexual harassment. How do they take it as objectionable? Most of the women here in the rural area, you will say, they say it is natural, it is a part of life. ये तो हम रोज देखते हैं. This is the first thing. They have seen that right from the beginning that was happening over there, and no one ever stopped that. So for them, it is a very, very routine here affair. So teaching them, making them understand what is a good touch, what is a bad touch, what is symbolic of what, which incident, which remark, which comment is implying something, and which is you have a right to defend yourself on that. So for that, we are trying to sensitize the society by we going for number of lectures, face-to-face interaction in small groups, in order to communicate to them that this is your right, so put your foot down. This is something in violation, and now this is a problem which has been addressed legally. So you have a right to say no. And if someone is still indulging into this kind of a practice, you have a right to make a complaint to your employer, and the employer will take up the things. But again, the point, second point which I would emphasize upon is that what is the status of the employer? How far the employer is willing and consensus, because there also the situation is no one complained about it earlier. Why are you talking this now? Why are you trying to create a new concept over here? You are making things difficult for us. Employee will be sitting on our head if you behave, teach, or you communicate these kind of things to them. New problems will arise at the workplace. So giving this message is very, very necessary, but it is very difficult to convince the employers that these are the problems and they need to take care of. It is a binding obligation on them that they have to ensure that their workplace is safe for the gender to work over there. So if exploitation is there, harassment is there, exhibition is there, unnecessary acts and conduct or behavior is being exhibited, it is amounting to an offense under the act. So the first is to sensitize and teach the population which has been a witness to such things but never identified and recognized that this is our right and we have a right to speak on it, and no one should be indulging into this kind of harassment with us. So here this is a bigger challenge, convincing the population, making them understand. The biggest barrier is that the elders sitting over there, they have a big objection to this message being communicated. They believe that you are corrupting the morals of the society. So you don't interfere in our working and in our functioning. So this is a big challenge which is there. But since the legislation is intact, so we have a better edge in convincing them, in making them understand that this is how things need to be controlled and checked. So we
Right.
have taken up an initiative that we are moving to educational institutions, small village schools, or we take a group of people, and by making a visible either a play or a nukkad natak, and we give a presentation to them that this is what is happening. This can happen to your children also tomorrow, your daughters, your wife. So people are now accepting us from a situation where they will not allow you to exhibit it or even perform a small play or give a small clip or even a pamphlet in their village because they believe, no, this is not acceptable to us. You cannot talk openly about this. It was a taboo to be discussed and talked about. But today, I see that there is a change. There is a transformation. We see number of village panchayats. They do come and discuss that what need to be done. Now they even give us an invitation. Please come and teach our children, or give them how they can go for explaining these things to the other people who do not have access to us. So this is how things have moved on, and there is now a visible change which is available, and the act actually is being practically implemented.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I personally believe that the right, we can be the number one, the most populous country in the world, which need
Yeah,
not be a liability. If we can shape the character of our children and bring them up correctly, then it can be the largest country with the largest human resource, and
yeah,
the right mind can do wonderful things. It's just that
true.
we are not being able to give the right infrastructure to our children to, think and produce great scientists. Why should we have only one Sundar Pichai, or one Satya Nadella? We should have at least, as the most populous country, we should have hundreds of them.
Yeah,
The other thing is, I'm so glad to hear from you that the gender sensitization session, which is mandatory under the POSH Act, at least at the policy making level, it's not being looked at just a, tick mark. It's just a checklist, a tick. What shall I say? Tick mark on the checklist. It's being
So
really.
I'll add on here, Divya. So it is being implemented when I said. So when I went for one of my post trainings in October at a construction site, which included both blue collars and white collars, the masons, the electricians, as well as the engineers, and as well as the project directors. Okay, so
mm,
I conducted 10 sessions at Maharashtra at the construction sites. There were, I'm telling you, out of those 10, there were 4 batches only consisting of male
good.
employees. So it is not that ki posh has to be given only, the education has to be given only to the female, but also to the male.
Male.
Maximum questions came from male, not about when I generally have a joint session, the first thing which comes as a question is, what is about us? What is the act which protect
Mm.
us? How about us? We are also harassed. That is, but here the maximum questions were like giving hypothetical situations. Ma'am, if somebody is downloading, if somebody is sharing a laptop with a female employee in the first half and second half, the same laptop is being passed on to female employees, then how about that if somebody has downloaded some objectionable picture and kept it? And what about, how about that ki somebody has created a folder by the name of a female employee and put objectionable pictures into that? He has not directly said anything. Will that constitute a posh? So, there were n number of situations which were coming up. So, people at large are definitely being concerned about it, but the seriousness is not being taken by the employees. They just say, oh, now we have to be just keep zipped and will not say anything. That's not the
Mm,
intent of the act. You have to take it seriously. When I start training, I say charity begins at home. I have to teach my son as well as my daughter. More my son to make him a gentleman than my daughter to behave properly and in the public.
I
So
think somebody said that, I forget, some politician once said that, why do Indian women, I mean, Indian mothers keep on telling their daughters, beti aisa mat karo, vaisa mat karo. High time that Indian parents start telling their sons, beta aisa mat karo, vaisa mat karo. And
exactly.
true.
so the other thing that I wanted to discuss is this constant rhetoric that, this POSH Act is being abused, POSH Act is that the truth? Because we know, even if you take the bus, the ordinary, our road public transport, we know women are sexually harassed, molested, especially young girls. They know that 17, 18, 16-year-old,
Yeah, yeah.
girl is still a child, she won't retaliate. So, in that context, I mean, there is obviously a need for such an act. There's no denying that. But what is this rhetoric about the act being abused? Both Dr. Rupam and Poonam, I would like you to share your
See,
comments on.
everything
Yeah.
has its plus and minuses. Everything has its plus and minuses. So while it is being used, it is being abused. I will not deny that, and I will not retract that and try to cover it up. While it is being used, it is being abused. But my experience till now has been of the usage more rather than abuse. Abuse is there when there is a situation of a couple or there is some animosity between two people. Otherwise, more is of usage till date now. Like DV Act, Domestic Violence Act, yes, POSH Act can also be abused. There is a lot of scope for that also. But any act, there is a loophole. Everything we abuse. We know before even an act comes and a statute comes in, we have find out our ways to go through it and be safe and try not to be the violators.
In the posh context, Dr. Jagota, what would you say? Is posh being more used or abused?
It is no doubt being used, but I would not refuse to say that it is not being abused. It is being abused. See, anything, the once we know that this is falling within the domain of law, the definition itself gives us a scope and a margin. So when people understand that this act, they look for other alternatives. Now, just as ma'am said, you are using a laptop and you are sharing the pictures. There are a number of people who will download such kind of pictures knowing very well and putting it on the screen itself. The moment you click the screen, you will be able to see those kind of pictures. So you would say it has been done by ABCD. Who is the doer of the act? No one will own up who did that, who has downloaded it, who it is actually for. Was it done with the view to be exhibited by everybody, or it was for one particular female whom he was interested in? So things like that no doubt are happening, and we would not deny it is there everywhere. At every workplace you would see small incidents which are taking place, but the fact is that, do you accept that and you clearly say no, or you take it lightly until it comes onto your head? So
It
where to
is.
put your foot down, that is what my focus is. That should be understood, and that is what we try to convey to all employees, or particularly the female employees. These days I also see that even in my small city, more men are being victimized. More men come and complain of harassment, and that is from the females. So it is not the female boss, it is the other colleagues also, because day by day there are few areas where we have less of male and more of female in majority. So this is also being exhibited, that women are using the same tactics and they are now exploiting, and it is also amounting to harassment to the men fraternity. So we are trying to ensure a society where there is gender neutrality. We're trying to bring about gender parity. We are saying equality to both the genders, but that is more easy to be said rather than to be practically being followed by the society. We have an equation where people said women have always been discriminated and exploited. Now it is my turn to do the same thing. Today I am the boss. Yesterday you were there to do the things. So it is not a war between the two genders. The idea is that if we are in a capacity, then we need to try to put the house in order. So we are making an effort, but then again, the mindset need to be changed and transformed, and it will take some time before we see that things are moving on to the right platform.
No, I completely agree with you, doctor. An ideal workplace, an ideal world would be a world where nobody is harassed, man or
Right.
woman. But
What?
I haven't heard of a case where a lady boss asks a male colleague for some sexual favors and interferes with his appraisal, interferes with his promotion. When it is, we have heard of cases where the male boss will, expect sexual favors from a female subordinate, or if he has an affair with a colleague, then everybody is at a disadvantage, not just another lady worker in the workforce. But as you say, that we evolve as a society, and as the society evolves, it comes up with, there are new problems, and new problems have to be addressed with new solutions. The other thing that I would like to discuss is, this media by trial. Now, there is no doubt, as I said, we are talking about one death for every 11 minutes.
Right.
And then you have, we had this case of Atul Subhash. Man made a video of an hour, put it on YouTube. It went viral, committed suicide, blamed his wife for it. Now, this trial is being taken over by media, not by judiciary. And what disturbs me is he also made a lot of comments against the lady judge who was handling his matter, saying that she asked for a bribe. That too was, I would say, over highlighted by the media. See, what happens is today, even today, and I practice in Bombay, I practice in Gujarat, I have a physical office in Gujarat. When I go there, when I go to tier 2 cities, when I go to rural areas, people are scared of the courts. The minute they get a legal notice from a lawyer, you and I are in the, we are advocates, so we are used to receiving notices and replying notices. But when a layperson, common man, receives a legal notice, he still has the fear of law in him. Now, continuously deriding and berating the judiciary, what happens is you are also undermining the law. There is a lot to be decided from the law enforcement agency. Now, the other growing rhetoric is Domestic Violence Act. I feel yes, maintenance has been our experience. My partner, he does a lot of litigation, and it's not that the family courts grant whatever the wife asks under the DV Act. She has to justify her demand. And very often we tell our clients that if you make out an exaggerated case, it will be thrown out. In fact, you won't even get what you are entitled to. So this trial by media and this chest beating over Domestic Violence Act, what are your views on it?
And if you say domestic violence, it is a reality. I think majority of the women are victims of domestic violence. No doubt the act has been very well drafted by clearly specifying the offences, the gravity which the act has been done and committed. But the problem is that since 498A has been very badly abused, and women have been exploiting just to tame their husbands. So the same methodology is also becoming under Domestic Violence Act. You are making an application to the CGM and you are filling that performer, the full form under the Domestic Violence Act, and you're marking everything. And then you are putting up a representation. Whenever the officer is coming for inquiry, we are projecting people to ensure that this is how I am being victimized. What is the real story? See, number of cases that come to us also, we see that the problem actually is not dowry. Problem is something else. Either the woman is looking for an excuse. There are few cases where dowry is undoubtedly an issue and there is cruelty and they are being subjected. But those women are never coming to us. They do not make a complaint only. Either they belong to the very elite class of the society or to the poor, where they feel that they do not have sufficient means and resources, so they are not bothered about it. Women who are coming under the act, they are either using it to tame their husbands or they are intending to get out of a marriage which they were forced to enter by their families. So perceptions of why this is happening, how it is happening, what is the gravity of the offense with which it is happening, that is varying from situation to situation. A mental or psychological problem is also a very big issue in domestic violence these days. So, how much is the pressure? And how much are we actually representing it to show that you want to come under the act and seek a benefit from there? Custody of the child and maintenance. Now, maintenance is a big factor. When you say you are claiming maintenance, whether the husband is fully capacitated, number of times the woman is equally earning as the man is. And there the major issue is to claim maintenance. So there are so many excuses which are coming up, and usually the husband says, I have nothing. Since she has a right to residence, a protective order can be taken by her under the Domestic Violence Act. So, woman, if she is not happy, she's moving out of the house, she's not taking the right to residence or right to shelter in the matrimonial home. So, once she walks out of the home, making her claim and right or seeking the opportunities which she could avail, it becomes all the more difficult. So her own case goes on depleting day by day. What was the situation yesterday and what it is today? For claiming maintenance, were you responsible for the acts or the husband was responsible? Was he indulging into adultery or the woman herself was indulging into adultery? Woman herself walks out without giving you a reasonable excuse that why I don't want to live in the matrimonial home. So innumerable things are there. The act was an attempt to reduce the effect of police or the scare factor which was there under 498A, so that you can simply make your complaint and you can get a redressal for yourself if you are being victimized because of the cruelty or mental or physical or economic, in whichever format it was being you were being subjected to.
I completely agree with you, Doctor, that, and this is true of all the laws, all the welfare legislation that we have in India. We have excellent laws, but the people who really need it don't seem to be even aware of it, don't have the
Yes.
wherewithal to avail of it. And people who know the law tend to, misuse it. And as I say, everything, it's a cliche in our legal world. Everything ultimately depends on facts and circumstances of the case. And but let's hope that next time there are more women. There are very few women actually on the only, for example, only less than 10%. I've said this before. Less than 10% of the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are women. Of course, I'm not advocating quotas. What I would rather see is you train the women to be the very best and not have these tokenisms in the form of quotas and reservation. What would be a more challenging task is have to make our girls the very best in all the fields, to equip them, to make them brilliant. And why girls, even boys? Yes, and it's already past 6. I think we can take the questions from the floor. And yeah, and thank you, Poonam, and thank you, Doctor.
Pleasure,
Thank you.
pleasure, Divya.
So there's a question in the chat box. Is there any quota for women judges? I think the participant wants to know, is there any reservation for females in judiciary?
No,
No,
no.
there is no such reservation. You have to compete, sit for the same exam, you qualify the exam, the prelim, the main, and the interview. There is nothing called privilege being given to a female.
Okay. One question from the registration form. What are the solutions for speedy disposal of cases involving heinous crimes against women?
The court will take its own time.
Yeah.
I don't think you can speed up any trial because under the criminal law, the guilt has to be proved beyond reasonable doubt. It cannot be based on any hearsay evidence. It has to be proved beyond reasonable doubt.
Kolkata doctor's case, I think they've set up a special
Yeah,
bench.
you can have a special bench. You can have a nice CBI investigation, SIT investigation, but there is no special laws which will speed up the issue, speed up the matter. A special bench can be, but the bench will again take that same amount of time to get into that decision. The decision making is a process. It's a time-taking process.
Okay. There's one question on the chat box. What are your views on reverse posh? But I think this is already discussed, right? Reverse posh.
I think we have addressed that at the end of the day, any act, welfare legislation is liable to some sort of abuse. But look at the use, and it is required. As I said, we unfortunately live in a country where most of the time you can't even take public transport from one place to another without being molested.
Okay. And the next question on the chat is, which country has the best legal system for empowering women and have really stood the test of time? I think the question is, the laws have stood the test of time.
Dr. Rupam, I think Dr. Rupam would be the best person to address that question. She is a PhD on the subject.
Yeah. See, we have the laws of Ireland, which are considered to be the best since we, India as a nation itself, when we drafted the constitution, we brought most of the laws we were borrowing from these nations. But as far if I say one particular country, there is no such country. See, everywhere the law is being made according to the need and requirement of the populations. So there are flaws in each law. If I say the law of New Zealand or UK is very good, same goes, people would say India has the best of laws since we have the written and the drafted constitution. So you know what is the law, you know what are the ingredients, you also know what will be the punishment if you are committing that and that particular offense, and if you are falling within the essential ingredients of that offense. But every country is drafting the law looking at the need, necessity, requirement, demands of the population. So each country tries to make the best law. But there is no such country which you could specifically say that has the best laws and there is no violation. Currently, Ireland and Switzerland, they are considered to be the neutral nations of the world and having the best of the laws which are being framed with the population friendly perspective.
Okay. There's one more interesting question to all the three of you. The participant wants to know what are your opinion on how the laws that have been drafted with noble intentions but are being abused. So how can this be avoided?
It all depends on person to person. I say laws are for citizens, citizens are for law. If we as citizens are respecting the laws, the laws are being implemented, then we have a good society, we have a tolerant society. But we as citizens are trying to find out loopholes and trying to work around the law, then we are not having that society. So as I said, grooming starts at home, charity begins at home. So we have to work. It is more of a social or what I say, the civic sense has to be there. The social obligation of us to become more law-abiding citizen has to be there. If that's there, that is achieved, then we are doing good.
I'll add on to that. See, we I would say that if we believe that just because the incident of Vishakha happened and we enacted POSH, then we brought in POXO, we brought the Domestic Violence Act. Prior to the coming of these legislations, was such offences not taking place in the society? Everything was it there, everything was existing. Today we talk about live-in relationships. We are saying there should be a legislation which should be drafted in order to check. We are demanding a uniform civil code also. So everything people are making demand, but they are already in existence. Today we talk about living relationship. You go back centuries behind, living relationship was always there in the country. So just because we are drafting a legislation, we become more aware. We believe that today only the crime has started, but it is all there. It is the mindset which need to understand that violations should be checked and restricted. And we are drafting the legislation just to ensure that law is available. If there is a violation, we need to take care that such violations are not taking place. And those who are indulging into it, they should be subjected to a punishment. So laws come with a good, a positive perspective that we are in for reformation of the society. And that is the purpose they are saying. It is not that law has been brought in or crime has today started multiplying. Women have always been witnessing such kind of incidents. And no one, why people never demanded in the 16th century? Why this demand is only coming today? The more you get enlightened, the more you are understanding the thing, more you become participant to the things. We say that we need a law on every such issue, but more we understand, understanding is for making ourselves sensitized and to emphasize on the fact that law should be an aid, it should be an assistance, and for that you can seek guidance for it. It is not that if law is there, it needs to be or it has to be violated by us.
Yeah, I completely agree with both Poonam and Dr. Jagota that legislative drafting and implementation aside, what we need to focus is on improving the texture and character of our people. It should be accompanied by social reformation. How do you do that? Social reformation is more painstaking than legislative, than passing laws. So that is one, and honestly, when how do you create a society of achievers? Why are certain countries ahead of us? Where are we lagging behind as a society? Let's address those issues. Let's plug those loopholes so that when you say I'm so proud of the fact that we are the most populous nation in the world, but let's not look upon it as a drag. Every conversation on population, we talk about population as if more humans in a beautiful country is a drag on us. These are our children. Let's shape them and groom them so that they can achieve their dreams, so that they can take us forward as a nation. If you look upon our children as not as a drag, but as as children who need to be groomed, and to create a society of, now why do this Poonam mentioned about, some inappropriate material being downloaded on her on a laptop. Why is it that Indians are the largest user of porn sites? Why can't they be the largest users of some National Geographic magazines? Why can't they be the largest number of scientists? What we need to engineer the mindset of our children. So that is what I would have to say. Just talking about legislation and the how it is being used, abused, is we are actually as a people going off the track.
Okay. The next question is many married women prefer freelancing. Are there any provisions under the Employment Benefit Act protecting the rights of freelancers?
So if you are freelancers or you fall under the definition of consultant, then of course you have the benefit of availing the Maternity Benefit Act. But other social securities are not available to you. But having said that, there are the civil laws and the tortious liability or the criminal laws are there to back you up or there to watch your back. They can come to your rescue if anything illegal happens to you. But employment statutes don't give you that much of protection.
Okay. The next question is, do you all believe that media largely manipulates the masses and projects wrong information?
I would not like to comment on that. It's their fundamental right. They have fought a case and got that right to say what they want to say.
Divya, any comments?
I was watching Alfred Hitchcock's interview once. It's a old interview in black and white, and somebody asked him whether his movies, because most of his movies were about, murders, and they were all thrillers, whether his movies contributed to the crime in society. And I will never forget his answer. He said that his movies would have a pervert influence on a pervert mind. And he gave the example of a 10-year-old who once came up to him and asked him whether he had used ketchup for blood. And he said that, look here, there's a 10-year-old who knows the difference between what is real and what is unreal. I don't think Indians are so, naive as to believe whatever, anything that is fed to them. So yes, but I sometimes I feel media should be, what it used to be when I was a child and what it is now. It is not improving in all aspects, but yes, but the Indian people are not, as I said, it has same piece of news can have a different influence on a different mind, and same piece of news can influence a pervert mind pervertly.
I'll just add
Okay.
to that, ma'am. That
Yes.
see, what is media trial primarily? If you're looking, we are exhibiting, we are trying to give it the camera color. and everything which is in visual form, it is attractive and fascinating, and the story goes like that, that we feel as if a picture is running before us. So everyone, they do not even bother to understand what the criminal trial is actually about and where it is starting from, what are the complications of a trial. But they believe that it is, since media is saying it, so it is, everything is right, it has to happen in that format, in that fashion, and whatever media concludes, that is right. But I think the converse is that even the judge himself does not know if he's going to convict a person at the end of the story, or he will be giving an acquittal. So that is the interesting, or I say the tragic part of the story, where media has projected in an image and which is not positive. So media should play a positive role. You highlight both sides. You do not give a conclusion. Let the judge listen to us what we are saying, and he will write down a story. So a judgment, sorry. But that is not to be done. So media should stay within its constrained limits rather than trying to encroach upon the function which has been assigned exclusively to the judiciary.
Ma'am, my question is this. While I'm a very strong proponent of women's rights, women's respect and protection, the Providence has it that of late, or rather for the quite some time now, I'm seeing that, for example, in a corporate, if a boss is very straightforward and tough, and if a subordinate who is a lady who is not able to, go ahead with her job, at least on an average level, she takes recourse to posh. I'm being specific to certain. I'm not generalizing it. So the victimization. How do you avoid such victimization? Because what happens is that the boss is very straightforward, but also is very mindful of his image. Now this lady throws up some type of an very false narrative, which obviously is caught in the society and in the corporate fraternity, and to that extent, the boss's health has taken a beating. In the last 20-25 years, he has always been above board. But this type of, I'm just citing an example. How should victimization be avoided?
Victimization of whom, Girishji?
Of the men. See, of the
Mhm.
men. Because even in the
Victimization.
marital cases, I know, in fact, it's there on the YouTube. One particular lady was receiving alimony from seven husbands. And it was
Are
they just
you
stumbled on it.
just a second, Girishji. Are you asking from an employment law perspective or from the marital law perspective?
Both. I am basically asking from the victimization. How do men protect themselves from being victimized in such a false narrative?
So if it's a false narrative, men should have enough evidence. It all boils down to evidence. If there is a case, there is a complaint of posh against a man, then it will all boil down to the evidence. If they don't have evidence, then they will be acquitted, or there will be no complaint. And if it is proven that there is a false complaint, then the female employee is meted out with the punishment. So it is, so under the Posh Act, both male and female employee are protected, or both male and female employee are penalized. So I would say that. So it's a gender, while the Posh Act talks about protection against sexual harassment against women, it penalizes both men and women of false complaints or of any act. So when you say victimizations, if you are saying that a person or female is underperforming, then try to create documents of her performance rather than calling her and telling her in an inappropriate manner or unofficial and in professional language that you are not working up to the mark. So even languages like, women are good for nothing, or they are just only good for the kitchen, that will also amount to sexual harassment. So
Yes, yes.
men also have to watch their language when they are dealing with female employees who are junior to them or even senior to them. I have come across cases where junior male employees have misbehaved with senior female employees.
So this was the last question that we took. So quickly, Divya and Rupa ma'am, if you have any views to share on this, and then we can conclude the session.
Ma'am, I would say a big thank you. It was very good, and really love to have the word with Divya ma'am and Poonam ma'am also. And thank you. It is because of you that we could have a new linkage.
Yes, thank you, Malvika, and thank you, Doctor. It was really a pleasure, being on this session with you. Of course, Poonam and I, we were at one time working for the same law firm, so we know each other through a different connection, but it was honestly, it was great meeting you on this platform. Thank you so much. And thank you, Malvika.
We thank the both of you for sharing your valuable insights, your expertise, and your personal experiences with us. It was a great session. Thank you so much.